Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Here we are from group 3. We'll present about discourse and gender, discourse and sexuality, discourse and identity, and discourse and ideology. Happy watching!
The first is discourse and gender. Discourse is term of gender refers to a whole range of different symbolic activities, including style of dress, pattern of consumption. These include norms, behaviors, and role associated with being a woman, man, girl, or boy, as well as relationship with each other. Gender can be called as socio-cultural behavior, socially constructed category, product, or social practice. It also can be explained as a routine, repeated acts according to historical and socio-cultural norms that define masculinity and femininity. According to Cameron 2005, gender is something a person does, the way they talk and act. Gender identity is continuously produced, reproduced, changed, and different through people's performance. According to Helmut 2001, women tend to use more standard forms than men do. Men use more vernacular forms than women do. For example, women pronounce words with ing fully, like swimming, flying, and trying. Then, men pronounce them ending with in, like swimming, flying, and trying. According to Min 2001, on male football, referees talk to confirm masculinity identity, create solidarity, and show group membership.
Next point is discourse and sexuality. The relationship between language and sexuality further complicates the topic of gender and discourse by adding the notion of desire in the discussion. While gender is something that is socially constructed, sexuality has a much more conscious basis based in the notion of desire. That is a person's intimate desire for connection to others that exceeds their conscious control. Okay, the next point is about discourse and identity. Identity becomes a central concept in social science and humanities. A person may have a number of identities, each of which is more important at different point in time. For example, they may have an identity as a woman, as a mother, as someone's partner, or identity as an officer worker. In Blommaerts 2005, page 205, he said, a lot of what happens in the field of identity is done by others, not by oneself. In some cases, identity may only be temporary. Equally, not every identity will have some range of scope, nor be the same across time and physical space. Next, identity and written academic discourse. Identity isn't much an issue in written discourse as it is spoken in discourse. This is particularly the case in students' academic writing. Helen, in 2000, discusses the view that is often presented to students the academic writing is faceless. In personal discourse, Helen also argues almost everything we write says some things about us and the sort of relationship that we want to build with our readers. Discourse analysis has shown how personal and social identities are shaped in social interactions and how they are created, produced, negotiated, imposed, or even resisted through discourse. Much of the analysis done from a critical perspective focus on the discursive representation of social collectives and how people enact or attribute identities in discourse. A key theory of group identity is social identity theory or SIT, and the related self-categorization theory or SCT, developed by the psychologist Tejfel and his colleagues in the social cognition tradition of social psychology. Within SIT and SCT, social identity is defined by individual identification with a group, a process constituted firstly by a reflexive knowledge of group membership, and secondly by an emotional attachment or specific disposition in this belonging. The emphasis in Tejfel's work lies in the social cognitive processes of membership and the way that belonging is both initiated and sustained rather than in the form of named collectivities outlined above.
The last is discourse and ideology. Ideology is a set of statements or beliefs which produce knowledge that serves the interests of particular group or class. Ideology is based on distinction between true statement about the world and false statement, and the belief that the fact about the world will enable us to distinguish between the two. Ideology can be explored in a text in a number of ways. The analysis may start by looking at the textual features in the text and move from there to explanation and interpretation of the analysis. Ideologies mentally represent the basic social characteristics of a group, such as their identity, tasks, goals, norms, values, position, and resources. In other words, ideologies are localized between social structures and the structure of the minds of social members. They allow social actors to translate their social properties, like identity, goals, and
I'm
position.
Anissa Fatulayuni, and here I would like to continue the presentation. Here I would like to discuss about the data analysis and also the example of discourse and gender, discourse and sexuality, discourse and ideology, and also discourse and identity. Here we will analyze a daily conversation. Here is the gender discourse analysis from this conversation. From the dialogue above, we all know that the conversation was conducted by a guest and a waiter of Dewata Restaurant. From the waiter's dialogue, "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Dewata Restaurant," we can know that the guest is a man. The waiter called the guest as sir. Sir is a greeting that addressed to call an unknown adult male. Sir is also used in formal conversation to greet customers in provision of services such as in office, shops, restaurants, hotels, and others. Besides that, the worker of Dewata restaurant that served the guests on the conversation above is a man. It can be analyzed from the guest's dialogue. "Excuse me, waiter." The guest called the worker of Dewata restaurant who served his as waiter. Waiter is a name to call a male worker who serves a guest at a restaurant. In other hand, a female worker who serves a guest at a restaurant is always called as waiters. So, we can know that there are two men at this conversation. Okay, well, here is the next analysis from this conversation. Here is the identity discourse analysis. So, from the conversation at the dialogue above, we can know that a man comes to the restaurant. He said, "I want to have my dinner. Can I have a table for one, please?" From his dialogue above, he comes to the Dewata restaurant to have a dinner for himself. His identity here as a customer of Dewata restaurant that wants to have a dinner. In other hand, another man who serves the guest or the customer is a waiter of Dewata restaurant. It can be seen from his behavior and his dialogue to the guest. He serves the guest friendly and courteously. He greets the guest, "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Dewata restaurant," and serve the guest well. "May I help you, sir? What would you like to have, sir?" "Yes, sir. And what would you like for the drink?" "Here are your food, sir. Enjoy your dinner. Here is your bill, sir." Serving a customer friendly and courteously is an identity of a waiter or waitress when they work at restaurant. Okay, well, here is the ideology discourse analysis from this conversation. So, a male who calls a female in this conversation is interpreted as a man who calls his girlfriend. It can be seen from their greeting. The male calls the female as honey, and the female replies by calling the male as darling. Both of honey and darling are greeting for someone to call their love, such as a boyfriend or girlfriend. A presupposition present in this conversation is the male and the female has a long-distance relationship for a long time. And at that time, when the male called his girlfriend, he has come back to his city. A further presupposition in the conversation is that the male will go to his girlfriend's house and then meet his girlfriend up after 30 minutes later. The last is sexuality gender analysis. So, a male and a female who have a conversation in the telephone are two humans who love each other. Because the male must stay in other places that far away from his house for a long time, so the male and his girlfriend could not meet up for a long time too. When the male said that he was at home, his girlfriend was being surprised. As a couple who has long-distance relationship for a long time, they want to meet each other to kill their thirst.
Okay, thanks for watching and your participate. We really sorry if we did a mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.